Good morning. Welcome into this day at Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. The welcoming words this morning are inspired by Chip Rausch, as amended. We're about to enter sacred time. We're about to make this time in this space sacred by our presence and by our intention. Each week has 168 hours in it. So we ask you for 168th of this week to be here, to be present. Please silence or preferably turn off your cell phones. And as you do so, invite us also to turn down the fears in our hearts, turn down our concerns, to remove the facade of, I'm fine, if you're really not, and to loosen the armor around our hearts. Don't do it just because I said so. Do it because it's what you feel. If you take a little risk with the people around you, you might find that they have the same human needs as you do, to feel connected to each other and to something possibly larger than any of us as separate human beings. Breathe. Let go of the expectations placed upon you by others and of the expectations they taught you to place on yourself. Drop the guilt and the shame, not to avoid accountability, but to acknowledge the possibility of forgiveness of yourself by yourself. Let go of the things that you said last week that you wish you hadn't. Let go of the dread that you might face for the upcoming week. Be here in this moment. Breathe. My name is Larry Morrell. I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that these waters, lands, and shorelines are the traditional territories of the S'Klallam and Chimicum peoples. And we vow to help restore and acknowledge these homelands. We acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and friends, and we vow to help restore these homelands not as a recitation, but as a vow, a promise. If you're visiting today, I'll offer a special welcome. We have a visitor's table out in the foyer to the right by the open doors. There will be greeters there able to answer any of your questions that you might have about us or anything in general. Please join us for coffee and refreshments after the service and a conversation or two we hope to have with you. We have a few announcements. Something's happening next week. Oh yeah, there's the annual meeting. Please be here for the annual meeting. We need everyone here for a quorum. Why are we meeting next week? We're going to vote on something, I think. Like the budget. Oh yeah, the budget. Yeah, we got to vote on the budget. So please be here in person. We need at least 100 people here in order to have a quorum. I think the actual number is 92. And there's a Zoom meeting this Tuesday, this week, 2 days, Tuesday at 5 o'clock. There's a Zoom meeting where we'll discuss the budget. You can learn about the budget, have all your questions answered, interact with each other. The link is either in the update on Friday, is also on our calendar on our website. And what time is our meeting next week? 12:30. 12:30, right. So please come. It's your responsibility as members. And more importantly, there will be cookies. The Healthy Community team is also seeking new members. It's important and spiritual and rewarding work. There are some skills and interests that you need in order to be qualified for the Healthy Community Team. You need a curious mind and an open heart. I can tell you from personal experience in previous congregations when I was on what was then called the Committee on Ministry, it's a very, very rewarding work. Be spiritually connected with this congregation and to help people who might need some help. It's very, very rewarding. Here today we have Hillary. I see her there. Joanna is here too. And Irina? Yeah, Irina's here. And Maria. So hold your hands up. If you're interested, please see one or more of them after the service. If you're curious or if you have an open heart. Only those people. If you weren't able to attend the volunteer appreciation dinner event on Friday night, there's appreciation materials for you just outside these doors. There's also a list of volunteer jobs, so you can write down where you actually volunteered this year. Our congregation cannot work without volunteers, so we really, really appreciate everyone who steps up and helps us carry the load. There's also a round table for you to be able to write down notes of gratitude. If people that you've noticed deserve or you want to express your gratitude, please take some time and do that as well. Now let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all here today. I'm going to share some opening words, and I invite you to say, "We give thanks this day when I lift my hand." Can you do that? So, beautiful. For our community gathered here, for the Spirit that has drawn us together and drew us to this place, for moments that we have shared with others, for times when we have reached across barriers of distance and fear, for times when others have reached out to us, for moments when we have discovered another along our path, for this community of celebration and growth, introspection and solitude, and for those moments of peace that passes all understanding. For our gathering together out of distant places, for our weaving together of our many separate lives. In this hour of celebration and worship, so may it be. Would you join me in our words for the lighting of our chalice? There they are. O light of life, be kindled in our hearts as we meet together this morning to celebrate the joy of human community, seeking a wholeness that's beyond ourselves. Let's join in our opening song. It's number 308 in the gray hymnal. If you want the music, the words will be projected for those of you who don't know. Let's stand as you are comfortable to do so. Well. So it is the time for all ages. And so I invite those who are young of body, spirit, heart to come forward as they wish. Always welcoming childish people as well. I know some of you are out there. Good morning. When I say childish, always a few people get up. I love the honesty of this congregation. So I have this book for y'all today, and it's called 5 Minutes. That's a lot of time. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Anybody relate? Okay, here we go. Back to bed. 5 more minutes, please. 5 minutes is a lot of time. We're out of here in 5 minutes. Wait, no, it's not. This will take just 5 minutes. Actually, it is. 5 minutes is forever. 5 minutes is an eternity. Only 5 minutes? 5 minutes is too long. 5 minutes is way too long. 5 minutes is too soon. 5 minutes is not soon enough. Are we there yet? We'll be there in 5 minutes. How am I supposed to wait 5 minutes? Now, I just want to note, every adult out there has this person living inside them. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right, y'all realize that? Every adult out here is doing the same thing. Okay, so there we are. Finally. 5 minutes is 5 minutes is 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a lifetime. Oh man, 5 minutes flies by. Sometimes. Please, just 5 more minutes. Seriously, hang on. Are we home yet? 5 more minutes. Shh. It's already been 5 minutes? It'll be ready in 5 whole minutes? This will just take 5 minutes. 5 minutes is endless. 5 minutes is a waste of 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not enough minutes. Even 5 extra minutes is not enough minutes, except for sometimes when 5 minutes is just right, especially when it's actually 10 minutes. And that's our book for today. The adults and I are going to be talking about time today. And this really just leads us into it. Thanks for coming up, and thanks for listening, and thanks for being here. We love you all, and we want you to go to your classes in peace. If the folks along the aisle would rise and form an arch. Let's sing.
Go now in peace, come, a spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
We pause now for a time of generosity and to receive an offering, which today goes to the food bank. The ushers will come among you to receive the offering, and additional ways for giving will be projected behind me. Please join me in our offering words. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. Bob Francis will be playing Chordially.
Friends, will you take a breath with me? It is our time for the sharing of joys and sorrows, and we have a long list today. So would you just take a breath with me and kind of get yourself positioned in your body and open your hearts. We always begin by placing a stone for some broader concern in the world. And today our first stone is placed thinking in particular of the health of our democratic system. As the journey toward our election in November continues, may we all contribute to making it fair and free. Within the congregation, first a candle of joy for the fabulous Quimper camp this last weekend in Brinnon. 103 folk of every age gathered for a truly wonderful time in community. And Bo adds, I hope you all join us next year over Memorial Day weekend. I don't think he's shaking his finger, but he's really trying to get you there. We light a candle of joy as well this week for Quentin Wald's 104th birthday on Tuesday. Happy birthday to Quentin. We place a stone now for Joanna England. She has been battling an undiagnosed total body skin condition for the past 2 months. Let us send her healing thoughts and love. We light a candle for Jessie Wild, who is undergoing cancer treatment, and send her our love and blessings. We light a candle for Deb Carroll, who expresses gratitude for getting through surgery for a recurrence of breast cancer, and with good wishes for her ongoing recovery journey. We place a stone of sorrow and peace for Jennifer Brink, who died yesterday morning. She had been in hospice care and had let folks know that she was ready to leave this life. We'll be sharing a Wheel of Life later this week when her daughter Christina comes back from a conference. A candle of love and memory for Mac Bowling, who suffered a head injury on Thursday and after a brief hospitalization died yesterday morning. Our love to his wife, Barbara, and family. Today would have been his 88th birthday. We place a final stone, holding in our hearts these joys and sorrows, and also thinking of all those joys and sorrows that we carry silently in our hearts. Thank you. Will you join me in a few moments of quiet and meditation, prayer, reflection? It's time for stillness, if that is what you like. We'll begin with some words by John O'Donohue, and then have a time of quiet together. I invite you to settle into your body, take a few deep breaths. These words: I bless the night that nourished my heart to set the ghosts of longing free into the flow and figure of dream that went to harvest from the dark bread for the hunger no one sees. All that is eternal in me welcomes the wonder of this day, the field of brightness it creates, offering time for each thing to arise and illuminate. I place on the altar of dawn the quiet loyalty of breath, the tent of thought where I shelter, waves of desire I am sure to, and all beauty drawn to the eye. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shells of yesterday, to risk being disturbed and changed. And may I have the courage today to live the life I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but to do at last what I came here for, and to waste my heart on fear no more. Let us be together in the stillness. So may it be. Amen. Our first reading today comes from the book 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. Is anyone familiar with this? Has anybody come across this yet? All right, got at least one. You will want this book by the end of the service. Just noting, by Oliver Burkeman. This passage from the book. There's a sense in which treating time as something we own and get to control seems to make life worse. Inevitably, we become obsessed with using it well, whereupon we discover an unfortunate truth. The more you focus on using time well, the more each day begins to feel like something you have to get through, en route to some calmer, better, more fulfilling point in the future that never actually arrives. The problem is one of instrumentalization. To use time by definition is to treat it instrumentally, as a means to an end, and of course we do that every day. You don't boil the kettle out of a love of boiling kettles, or put your socks in the washing machine out of a love of operating washing machines, although, let me note, my husband might. Love you, sweetie. Yeah. But you do this because you want a cup of coffee or clean socks. Yet it turns out to be perilously easy to overinvest in this instrumental relationship to time, to focus exclusively on where you're headed at the expense of focusing on where you are, with the result that you find yourself living mentally in the future, locating the real value of your life at some time that you haven't yet reached and never will.
Second reading is called The Word by Tony Hoagland. Down near the bottom of the crossed out list of things you have to do today, between green thread and broccoli, you'll find that you have penciled sunlight. Resting on the page, the word is as beautiful. It touches you as if you had a friend and sunlight were a present that he had sent you from some place distant as this morning to cheer you up and to remind you that among your duties, pleasure is a thing that also needs accomplishing. Do you remember that time and light are kinds of love, and love is no less practical than a coffee grinder or a safe spare tire? Tomorrow you may be utterly without a clue, but today you get a telegram from the Hart in exile proclaiming that the kingdom still exists, the king and queen alive, still speaking to their children, to anyone among them who can find the time to sit out in the sun and listen.
No. There I am. Yay. Several months ago, a colleague recommended the book that we're going to talk about today, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. I put it on the list of books that I thought I might like to read. And then a few weeks ago, when I had a lot of driving to do, I was flying out somewhere, so I had to drive to SeaTac and get on a plane, all that nonsense, and come back. So I was casting around for an audiobook to listen to, and happily, the library had a copy of the audiobook available, so I plugged in my phone and began to listen to it. As the time flew by, I found myself shouting, "Yes!" and occasionally pointing at my phone to emphasize how much I agreed with what he was saying. Berkman is one of those folks, if you haven't come across him before, who has tried to help those of us who are a bit hopeless when it comes to managing our time become more productive, focused, and in touch. For many years, he wrote a column for the British newspaper, The Guardian, about how to make your life better and what kinds of strategies and habits you might build to get everything just so. So he's been around that whole productivity, live your best life, get everything done, and yes, even you can do it, for about 20 years. And this book isn't what you might think. 4,000 Weeks is where he starts. Now that is a generous lifespan, 4,000 weeks, think about it. 80 years worth of a lifespan. It sounds different when you say it in that scale, right? How many weeks do you reckon you might have left? For me, it's many fewer than I have lived already, I suspect, and I suspect that's the case for most of you out there as well, though we never really know, do we? Mary Oliver's ever-present line, "What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" gets a little more challenging when it's closer to the roughly 1,500 weeks remaining, which is the calculation that describes my best bet for myself. For whatever reason, calculating weeks makes it feel a little more personal, a little more real, a little more looming. And paying attention to our mortality, getting real about what is doable and not doable, what is actually important and what we can lose, is what the book's about. Getting clear about what we're doing with the time we have left, I dare say. I think it's the first time that I shouted yes and pointed to the sound system in my car was when he recounted that exercise that Stephen Covey described back in the mid-90s. You guys probably remember this, or many of you will. It was an object lesson. So a teacher comes into a classroom with a large glass jar, recognizing this, some big rocks, some pebbles, some sand, and she asks the students to put it all into the jar, all the stuff in the jar. Y'all remember this exercise? Oh my gosh, not as many as I would have expected. So the students try a variety of tactics, but ultimately fail to get everything in. The teacher then, I suspect smugly, shows them how it works. First, you put the large rocks in, and then you put the pebbles in, and finally, you put the little tiny bits of sand in. And the lesson for the students was this: take care of the big things first, then get to the smaller things, and then finally the little tiny things. Well, y'all, my question is, do you remember nodding and agreeing with this? I mean, did you nod and agree with this, at least to some degree? Yeah, right? Of course that's how it works. Pay attention to the big things. It's obvious, isn't it? And do that first, and then fit in the little insignificant things around the edges. That's the way you do it, right? I mean, of course that's how you do it. But the fix was in before anyone got started. Which three of the important things in your life are you going to fit into that jar? But what if you have kids and an ailing parent and you need to work to pay the bills? What happens then when you get diagnosed with a chronic condition that limits what you can do? How many big things will fit in that limited life of yours? And when have you ever had a limited amount of smaller things, right? A limited amount of sand that you had to cope with in your life? When did you ever get to choose how many and how much was in each of those categories, much less the container it went into? See, here's the thing is, we're all mortal. We're all limited, and we don't get to choose a lot of what happens to us. We are confronted with what is simply there in our lives. And most of us make do as best we can and bumble along. And the thing that we want and the thing that we can't have is a magic formula that's going to change that. And there's good news. We do get to make choices about how we live, where we put our attention, and how we live in the light of that truth. How is it we can shape our lives, our vision of what life is about and what life is for? Listening along in the car, I was really struck by an exercise that gets described in the book. It comes from Jennifer Roberts, who teaches art history at Harvard. He recounts that an early assignment that she gives to all of her students is to go to one of the local art museums and sit with a painting or a sculpture for 3 hours without any distractions. No phone, no tablet, no computer, no nipping off to Starbucks to get yourself a cup of coffee. Just you and the painting, you and the sculpture for 3 hours. She does allow bathroom breaks, but for the rest of it, you're just sitting there with the art, looking at it. So the point of the exercise is to really take time to look at the art. Describing her own experience with a painting called Boy and Squirrel, she notes that it took her 9 minutes to notice that the shape of the boy's ear precisely echoes the ruff along the squirrel's belly. She notices things that she wouldn't have ever seen except for sitting there and really and actually looking at it. Berkman takes the challenge and finds a painting to sit with. He notes, in recounting this in the book, that after arguing with himself about whether this is the right painting or not, and complaining that this may be the stupidest thing he's ever done, he checks his watch and discovers that only 17 minutes have passed so far. He tells us that at around the 80-minute mark, something shifted, and he gave up his restlessness and started to really look at this painting by Degas. He comments, "The second-order change has occurred. Now that you've abandoned your futile efforts to dictate the speed at which experience moves, the real experience can begin." Let me say that again. Now that you've abandoned your futile efforts to dictate the speed at which experience moves, the real experience can begin. His delicate description of the people he sees in the painting, the dust in the air that the painter has magically captured, are only paint. The details that he wouldn't have noticed without stopping for so long. His communion with the painting is enchanting. He tells us, "Your reward for surrendering the fantasy of controlling the pace of reality is to achieve at last a sense of real purchase on that reality." Or to use a Britishism, he says, he's British, by the way, he says, of getting really stuck in to life. You know, preachers love a good illustration. And I mentioned to some of you last Sunday that I managed to drive right into the crowd of walkers who were taking part in the roadie run. Right, some of you heard some of my stories about it, that I was directed into this place by official-looking people, and that only made things worse for me. So I was already behind my usual schedule, so a little panicked, just at the get-go, because I had overslept that morning. As I'm driving along, the crowd begins to thicken and take up the entire street. The car ahead of me pulls over and parks. I can do nothing but do the same thing. It was 9:30. As families and intrepid walkers streamed past me, including David Alvarez, to whom I waved, but he didn't see me, so oh well. I may have pounded the steering wheel a little bit during this time, maybe more than a little. Swear words might have been part of my response to the cheery families strolling in happy camaraderie with each other. It may have been extreme enough that the woman in the car ahead of me came back to comfort me. I'm not proud of this. And to let me know that she could see that the crowd was thinning and we would be moving in just a few minutes. When we surrender the fantasy of controlling the pace of reality, how much better can our lives be? The answer is probably a lot. And the tricky thing, there's always a tricky thing in this stuff, right? The tricky thing is that it's a practice, not a destination. We humans, at least in my experience, tend to prefer the destination and forget easily that there's actually no there there. There's no moment in which you will have everything together and settled for all time, but don't you want it? I swear, the moment that you sit back knowing that everything is all tied up and you've got it all under control, there is going to be a Godzilla or a King Kong that'll descend on your world and remind you that you are not in charge. Can I get an amen? Amen. That's it. Nancy Mears, a writer whose words have been some of my personal scripture for decades, described a perfect life when wishing such a thing for her daughter. Acknowledging in this passage that there were a few things that seemed to make such a statement wildly unlikely. She was claiming to have a perfect life. She had, after all, just discovered that her husband was having an affair, and he had also just been diagnosed with cancer, and her life was utterly shaped by her own growing disability due to MS. Nonetheless, she says, the truth is that although perfect may mean flawless, it also may mean consummate or whole as well. And it is in this sense that I cherish my life as I could not, perhaps, without all its flaws. That is, these force me to live daily at the potential end of the world as I know it, and so on any given day, my life must be as fully made as I can make it, perfect. And it is this, I think, that we need to be paying attention to, making each day in as much as we can that kind of perfect, practicing to live in the flow of reality, not pushing against it, not striving for some kind of perfection that simply does not exist, when you take into account the flawed humans that we are and that we live among, but finding the wholeness, treasuring what is fragile and transient, living as wholly and fully as we can, and because of all of the above, see flawed, fragile, transient, knowing that forgiveness of ourselves and of these beloved creatures that we live among is a practice for us to embody oh so generously. 4,000 weeks is a flash in the pan, friends. The smaller number that all of us are living out will pass before we can do much more than blink. So yes, let us craft those perfect lives. Let us live with care and consciousness, and always, always with gratitude for this amazing gift that is ours. So may it be. Will you take a nice deep breath? Our closing song. Our songs today are both earth-based because I figure when you're talking about mortality, you need to have your feet grounded on the earth, don't you? So let's sing Blue Boat Home together, 1064 in the Teal Book, if you'd like the music.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making a way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
So you may notice, if you're looking at your order of service, it says fire drill, but it's drizzling, friends, and you'd have to stand outside for 10 minutes, and so we are going to do it at a different time. So, yay! And there's still donuts. See, that's the best part of it. Our closing words by my colleague Kathleen McTeague. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest that we may give ourselves to the work of our world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. So may it be with us all. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts, until we are together again.